We're going to be talking about a really important R today, right?
Yes.
And tell us what that is. Share that for us.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about, we're Wellbeing Simplified. Yes. And Tracy, do you want to kind of give a synopsis of what we are and what
Absolutely.
we do? And then I'll jump into the breathwork piece.
Okay, well, Wellbeing Simplified, our premise is that health doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be a struggle. You know, everywhere we turn, we see these, you've got to do this if you want to be healthy, you've got to do this if you want to be healthy, and it's overwhelming. You know, people don't know where to start, they don't know what to do. And what we have done is our combined 50 years of experience, we've put together a program that can benefit anyone. So if you follow these steps, there are 3 categories, and each category has 2 steps. But if you follow these steps, you'll see immediate results and you'll see cumulative results. So it's really a powerful, powerful thing. If you integrate these habits into your lifestyle, you can really make some changes, some big changes. So we've got 3 signature R's. Release, which last week we talked about the first step in release. I spoke mainly about it just because it's more centered on the body. And we take a tag team approach. Heather talks more about mind and spirit aspects of it, and I talk about more the body, physical body aspect of it, but they cross over because we're so interconnected, as you talk about a lot.
Right. Yes.
So we talked about hydration in that first step. So we've got release, and under that we have hydration, and we have breath work. So Heather's going to talk about breath work today. And then the next 2 R's are rejuvenate and reinvent. So as we watch the shows, we'll go further into that. But if you missed it last week, we actually have it on our Facebook page. We have it on our website, www.wellbeingsimplified.com. And you can watch the old episodes and get caught up. And
That's
then
right.
we'll end up having a workshop in the future to kind of have more hands-on.
Well, I have to say, that was a really great conversation last week.
Yes.
Because we were embracing this idea of the importance of hydration.
Yeah.
And I recall you mentioned everything from it improving brain activity to, energy, circulation, focus, all of those pieces.
Reducing cancer.
Yes, that was huge.
Propensities. Right.
And
Yeah.
this is
That was
all
huge.
science-based, all science-based.
Drink your water. And so
Yeah.
just as a kind of a review of what Tracy taught you guys last week, under release with hydration, before we can ever think about building our systems up and rejuvenating and reinventing ourselves, we've got to get the yucky stuff out that doesn't
Right.
serve us any longer. And that's that release part. That's that filtration piece. And so when we think about hydration, it's one way to just literally filter out of our kidneys, our liver, our skins, our very cells, the toxins. So then we can put the good stuff back in. Well, breath work does the same thing, just in a different way. It's another filtration system that the body has automatically.
Right.
Now let me tell you something magic about breath work. Breath work is the only function, it's the only system in our body that has a voluntary ability, meaning I can control it on purpose, and
that's
an
good.
involuntary. I don't have to think about it when I'm sleeping.
Right.
That's true.
That's
true.
about everything
That's
else. So it's the only way that we can, and what's beautiful is that there's synergy between our involuntary and our voluntary systems. Our involuntary being our autonomic nervous system,
Right.
which regulates our heart rate, it regulates our digestion. I don't have to tell my body to digest the breakfast that I ate this morning, it just does it. But when we can voluntarily regulate our breath and do it in a purposeful, appropriate way that brings our stress levels down, we now have control over all of those other involuntary systems in the body. See, stay with me here. Our heart rate, number 1 killer is heart disease in our society. Our circulation, our digestion.
Digestion, yes.
We know that stress isn't happening to us. Stress happens in us. And so it's all about learning tools where we can manage our stress response. Breath work is my favorite gold standard that I teach clients. I don't care if they're 4 years old or 75.
Right.
Everyone can learn it, and it can have an immediate result on your nervous system. And if done, like Tracy said, if done even as short as 21 days, you literally can, there's scientific research on this, you literally can take yourself out of that fight or flight state and more permanently rewire your system to be relaxed and stress-free.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, that's powerful.
breath work. Do you want to add anything to that about the
Well, you
filtration?
touched on breath work being filtration, and a lot of people don't realize this, but we have 4 channels of elimination. So most people think about the kidneys and the colon. Sometimes people think about the skin, which is our largest organ, so we get rid of a lot of toxins through the skin, but the lungs are super important for getting rid of toxins, and most of us don't take, and I know you'll get into this, don't take deep enough breaths. So they're not utilizing that ability to get rid of toxicity in the body. It's a wonderful tool to help, like you said, bring down stress hormones. And stress hormones are the ones that, if they build up and stay in our body for long enough, they cause inflammation and disease and pain and all kinds of things. So just that ability to start utilizing, I mean, you can do it anytime, anywhere. You just have to learn to do it sometimes quietly. I've made the mistake, like in a seminar, doing my breathing.
And people are like, I don't know, is it that kind of party, really?
So yeah, you have to think about that. But anyway, I'm
So would
blushing.
you say that?
You're on mic.
But that's huge, Heather. So this idea of it being an elimination, as Dr. Tracy is saying, we're getting rid of toxins with each exhalation.
Each one. And so that's that release piece. Yes. And so we talked last time about those cells in the cell wall. And we want that cell wall, which is the brain of our cells,
the
to
membrane.
be supple. The membrane. Yes, the membrane, to be supple. And so, of course, we can kind of intuitively understand how hydration can do that. If we have toxins that are stuck in that cell, and you're eating all organic food and you're hydrating the way you should hydrate, but that cell wall or that membrane is static and hard, then you don't have a fighting chance to get all that goodness inside.
Right.
So breath and hydration are just one way to kind of loosen up and open up those channels of elimination. So I want to tell a true story.
Yes.
And kind of tell it myself, just real life. I had this morning, I have 2 kids. I have Sophia, who's 11, and Nicholas, who's 8. And my husband, which always happens, is out of town whenever tragedy strikes, and I am not kidding.
It's true. Ever since I've known her.
Wow. So he's just got a heck of a timing.
I know, and he's a great guy.
He is.
110% husband and daddy, but
Awesome.
But darn it, he goes out of town. So I'm almost to the point where I'm like, he's going out of town. What's going to happen today? Which is horrible to project.
This
that
is some
in,
law
right?
of attraction stuff.
I know,
Heather.
which we'll get into and
Yes.
bring that back up. Because
Yes.
seriously, I've got to clear that out. But anyway, long story short, I'm driving my kids to school this morning, and I'm on I-10 Katy Tollway. And when you get on some of those HOV lanes, you can't get back off.
Right.
All right, so there I am, captive audience, driving, we're listening to music, we're having fun, and all of a sudden, literally my car starts falling apart. I mean, there's pieces from the underneath the, I'm going to really show my lack of car vocabulary, but
the bonnet.
The
I
bonnet,
guess.
yeah,
Have
right
around- is
under
what that's
that.
called?
Those pieces, who cares?
Not the
It's
bonnet hood, but
falling
underneath.
apart, and I'm running over my own car,
Oh, my
and
gosh.
my kids are, of course, starting to freak out, and my
Yeah.
daughter's like, "Pull over, mommy." Long and the short of it is that I stopped. I didn't stop. I kept driving carefully with my hazards on, and I breathed through the whole thing. And not because I'm so wonderful and great, but because I have honed the habit.
Right.
That I immediately went to deep abdominal breathing, and I could feel my heart rate lowering. I could feel, you get those cold chills all
Yes.
over your bodies. Like that started to go down. And it's because of the cumulative effect of doing this for so many years that I can pump out about 2 or 3 of the breath exercises that I'm going to teach you, and I can feel my heart rate and stress response lower. And I needed it today.
So wouldn't you say that that's the key way to controlling your emotions, moving from being angry, upset, once you learn to breathe, and I think emotional intelligence has a lot to do with once you learn how to breathe and you're able to stay calm and react from a calming state of mind, like you said, you were able to pull over quickly without panicking, and anything else could have happened had you not been practicing daily habits of breath flow.
Exactly. Well, very well said. Because what happens, like you said, with emotional intelligence, I mean, that's a habit as well. Is that what the breath does? And we'll get into the mechanics. Is that it's going to turn on? We talked about this last segment. That prefrontal cortex, which is my thinking and problem-solving part of my brain.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so now, instead of causing further damage by maybe swerving into other cars,
Right.
I had my faculties because of breath.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I made it here today.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank goodness. Well, we adore you, so we want to make sure you make it. Well, that's a really great technique. Now, this is interesting because this is hot off the presses. I literally have the research in my hands here that they just changed the standard for blood pressure. They literally,
Did you know
the
this?
old
No,
blood
no.
pressure standard before medication was warranted was 140/90.
Right.
And the new blood pressure standard is 130/80.
Wow.
Start
So
breathing.
Well, you know, that's the biggest risk factor for heart disease.
For heart disease.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
And breath
why.
work, perfect.
That's why I was bringing that up. So how does that tie in? How do we manage our pressure with our breathing?
Perfect question. You have, so here is your breathwork 101. The biggest nerve in your body is called the vagus nerve, VAGUS. We made a joke about that in another segment.
Yeah.
The vagus nerve is rooted in the abdomen, and it actually has two large branches that go up through the core of the body and ends in the brain. Now here's the magic part about the vagus nerve. The branches that branch off of the main trunk of the nerve go into every visceral organ in the body, including the heart.
Wow. Okay.
So when I can do what we call, when I work with kids, belly breathing, when I can keep the shoulders relaxed, the chest relaxed, and purposefully inflate the belly, which of course lots of us don't like to do that, but we put the air into the belly, it's almost as if you've turned on the switch or plugged in that vagus nerve that is rooted down in the belly. And you send a signal, because that's part of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxed part of your nervous system. Now the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system is on through that vagus nerve.
Right.
Every belly breath, you're sending a signal up the trunk of that nerve and through every branch. So now my stomach, my liver, my kidney, and my heart is getting the memo to relax.
Relax.
Yep.
And it ends in the brain and tells the prefrontal cortex, you're about to have a wreck. Use your problem solving.
Yes.
So it's
Avoid
just
the wreck.
Right.
Avoid the wreck. Stay alive.
An
Stay
interesting thing to add to this is kind of the mind over matter. So with this vagus nerve, 80% of the information goes from the gut up to the brain. So through all the organs up to the brain, and only 20% of the information will go downward. So you can't sit there and think, I need to relax, I need to relax, I need to relax. It's a lot more effective to do something that goes into the gut, because you're going to get, 4 times more effectiveness starting with the gut and getting that information to go up to your brain.
Wow.
And that's what's called the, it's the mind-body connection right there. You know, the mind and body. If I can manipulate my body correctly through breath work, I'm sending all kinds of calming signals to my mind. So now my thoughts change. I've got this. I can handle this. It's not an emergency. We've got insurance, thankfully. You know, all of that kind of thing. My mind starts to kind of change the story. But it's also that gut-brain connection.
This has been great. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that with the right breathing control, we have the capacity to slow our brains down, to redirect our energy, and we send information from our gut back up to our brain.
Yeah. And on the way, through every open organ. So now my liver's healthier, my kidney's healthier, I'm filtrating all of the toxins better, my heart is healthier. All of those calming message by the way it's making up to the brain are impacting my health. And we know that stress is a product of inflammation in the body. And so we also know that there's studies that show that breath work dramatically brings down inflammation. So if, do the logical deduction, if inflammation's brought down, or stress actually creates inflammation. So if you bring that stress level down, you're going to bring down inflammation, and then you're going to mitigate all of those horrible diseases none of us want to get.
Yes. So isn't it true, Dr. Tracy, that the majority of diseases are caused by inflammation?
Inflammation is, they're finding out more and more information about this, but in virtually every disease process there is an inflammatory response going on. And what happens, here comes to the importance of breath work, even if you already are in a disease process, if you're already dealing with something, the breath work not only helps detoxify and helps your body get stronger that way, but it helps bring down the stress hormones, which are going to help bring down the inflammation. So anywhere you are on that spectrum of health, because it's not a you're sick or you're healthy, we have this wide spectrum that we all fit somewhere along that line, it's always going to be beneficial for you. I mean, unless you're standing behind a car breathing in fumes, it's always going to be beneficial for you to work on breath work and that vagus nerve and toning the vagus nerve. And there are a couple of other things that you can do to help tone that vagus nerve to make breath work even more effective. Continually breathing, doing more and more breath work is effective, but also I think splashing your face with cold water and humming, believe it or not. So people that hum,
even
and
imagining
sing.
your hands go warm, and I'm going to teach you a technique about that in a moment. But that can even bring down. I forgot about
Yeah. Okay.
So
you
would you say that if someone's always feeling irritable, or if they always hold stress tight up here in their neck, or if they're always responding out of anger, would this be something that they could definitely help them to routinely start changing habits to act more calmly and to respond in a correct way, I guess you can say?
First thing I would teach someone.
Yeah.
First thing.
Yeah.
Before, both Tracy and I have private practices, where we work with individual clients. But before I would even talk about supplementation, maybe even before nutrition, anything else that I teach in holistic health, I would go to breath work. If someone was having a hard time with emotional regulation, with stress. So do you want to learn a technique?
Yes.
That's easy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Simple.
So there's a lot of
Wellbeing.
yes, simplified.
Yes.
And this is simple. And I want people to hear me say that practicing breath work means that you can literally get your phone and set it for 1 minute. And just sit down wherever you are, and I will say I have sat down in the middle of my bathroom. And if that's all I have is a minute, or in my closet, or driving. If you can just do it while you're driving, there I am in the car, I will just do the breathing exercise that I learned on Wellbeing Simplified. It will have dramatic changes immediately, but also accumulative. You're going to rewire the brain and the nervous system. So my favorite that both children and adults can do is called the 4-7-8 technique. And that's a ratio of seconds, 4, 7, and 8. 4, 7, 8 is on the inhale, you inhale for a count of 4, and you inhale through the nose. So when you take air in through the nose, you want to make sure that you keep the shoulders and the chest relaxed, and we're going to really be mindful of engaging that vagus nerve so the air is going to go directly down into the belly. You can't see my belly, I'm a little short. But
Right. I got it right here. Yeah.
Okay, so air in through the nose, and I work with children, I say like you're smelling a flower, that mindful bringing in the aroma of the flower. To about a count of 4, belly gets big. And then you're going to hold it for about a count of 7. When you hold your breath, you are sending a signal to the body that something important is happening, to be in the present moment. And then you're going to exhale through your mouth like you're blowing out candles or blowing bubbles, so like a little bit of a pursed lip, to a count of 8, where the belly goes flat. Now, the last kind of tip on getting the belly flat, because there's a reason why there's a double ratio on the exhale of 8 seconds. When we exhale, we are subtly stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system, which is that relaxed part of our autonomic nervous system. So it's like doing push-ups. We want to do a few more push-ups on the parasympathetic side. So the exhale is 8 seconds. When we inhale to 4 seconds, is a subtle stimulation of the sympathetic, your fight or flight system, which we want balance. And it's in a situation like today in the car. I needed to be able to kind of go a bit into fight or flight to react quickly for survival reasons.
Correct.
Okay, so let's do that again. So we're going to, if you're comfortable, you can place your hand on your belly, If you're really comfortable, you can close your eyes to kind of have that mindfulness of body, mindfulness of mind. Kind of get centered. Notice that you're here. Notice your feet on the ground. And when you're ready, go ahead and take the air in through the nose to a count of 4. 3, 4. Noticing that the belly's inflating. Hold it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now out through the mouth to an 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do another. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And give your fingers a wiggle. And gently open your eyes. And you can even feel the energy. It came down just even in the radio station here, just what was that, 2 breaths.
Yeah.
And so that's my go-to is the 4, 7, 8. Even if you don't count, if you just take that air in, inflate the belly, engage that vagus nerve, focusing on a really long exhale. One little tip, imagine bringing the belly button all the way to the spine like you would in a good crunch. And then you're going to really expel all the air and get that parasympathetic nervous system really strong.
Wow. Wow.
I would definitely say, even with that, just right now, you just feel more of an awakening when you really breathe and take that time. It's like when you open your eyes, it's just like everything seems
The colors
just
more
brighter,
vivid.
right?
Yeah,
Everything just seems brighter.
You're present.
Yeah,
You're in the
it's
moment.
definitely a settling in that I think people would definitely see if they make this a daily habit.
It's a grounding. I love that,
Yeah.
Alexis. It is. You can't not be present when you're breathing. And it's why in meditation, when folks teach meditation, one of the very first kinds of meditation they teach is a breathwork meditation. Oh, which, by the way, we have a free one on our website.
Okay.
We just posted it for this segment. So if you go to our www.wellbeingsimplified.com, is it under the blog?
I think it's under the blog.
Okay,
yeah.
it's under the blog, and
Yeah.
it's a breathwork.
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
And Heather did a great job. It's wonderful.
So go listen to that.
Yeah, help you through the holidays.
Nice. So it's an actual exercise that'll walk you through the entire
It's not
process.
what we just did now. It's a little bit more of a meditation, but it's focused on breath work. So I'll guide you. You'll hear my voice. And so if you've never meditated before, you can go click on this 6 minutes and you will have meditated. But it's based on, doing a little bit of what we did, closing the eyes, getting centered in the body, and then using the breath to keep us in that present moment.
Yes, wow.
That's good.
And sometimes it even helps because a lot of people will say they don't know how to meditate. They don't know what to do, what to focus on. And just listening to the calmness of your voice and how you sort of walked through, they might even be able to record what you have just kind of on their cell phone
bet.
and take that
Great idea.
and walk through it so they can become practiced.
That's a good
in
idea.
that process.
And just take it in that way if it's always with you.
Yes.
And right. And then you realize it's not as overwhelming, really. And we're going to do a whole segment on meditation.
Yep.
Simplified.
There's no perfect way, and that's one of the things with the breath work, like you were saying, meditation, even hydration. Don't get worried about rules and regulations and being perfect. It's life. We all have life. We're just trying to integrate some of these habits in and do the best that you can.
That's right.
Yeah.
1 minute at a time.
1 minute's wonderful.
And if you can do 1 minute of the 4-7-8 breathing every morning, you will change your life. I promise this.
That's true.
Yes.
You really will.
Definitely, moms. I would like to say even what you said earlier with the leaving work and the drive home. I know for me that's definitely my transition time to go from the corporate mom
say
work
one
mode
hat to the next.
mom right now, and you have to really get in that centered state because if not, you will go home and take work home with you, and then you get home and you're irritable. But if you do that process on the way home, then you can be very present with your kids, and you can be
Yes.
that mom that you aspire to be.
You really want to be.
Right. Instead of
When Alexis being a mom and Tracy and I are both moms too, you speak so wisely because when I train parents, I do parenting workshops sometimes, and when I work with parents, I say, your very best behavioral intervention with your children is to put your oxygen mask on first, is to calm our own
Yeah.
systems.
And Oscar knows this as a dad.
Yes.
I'm a single dad.
Even more.
You know, see, mom, if you flip mom's
Touche.
upside down, it spells wow.
No, but single dad must feel something bigger than wow.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, hats off to that. But you know that. I mean, it's one of my favorite parenting authors says that, you know, we have the capacity to squelch a storm or to ignite a tsunami. You know, with the energy we bring
that's the
to
truth.
a
Right.
child's meltdown or
Absolutely.
big feelings. Yeah.
Yes.
So breathe, stop and breathe before we ever open our mouths and engage with our children. And that's hard. It takes practice. But if you're doing your 1 minute of 4, 7, 8 every day, it's going to be easier.
Yeah, and you have time because you're in traffic 30 minutes at least minimum
it while you're
in
driving.
Houston.
That's
So
right.
that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Right. That's exactly right.
You'll be a better, happier driver.
Right.
Keeps that road rage at bay, right? So that's important.
Maybe we should have billboards up that say, breathe,
Just
breathe,
breathe.
like
Just breathe. Well, I love this shirt. So, folks,
that's-
yes, that's beautiful, and we have it on the block here too.
This is we just brought this from Miss Tracy and I share an office. It says "Stop and Breathe."
Stop.
I think a friend just bought that.
Yes,
for me. I
a
said,
friend
bring
just
that
brought
to
it
the
for me. I
show.
think she knew I needed to breathe.
That is great stuff. Well, folks, you've been listening to Wellbeing Simplified, and this has been sponsored by the Heights of Health. We've been talking to Dr. Tracy Southwick and Miss Heather Goodwin. Amazing conversation today. And folks, want you to reach out to them so you can find out more. You can do that at 713-861-6777. That's 713-861-6777. And also go to wellbeingsimplified.com. That'll give you an opportunity to walk through these meditations directly. That'll be awesome.